and stuff. But
Right.
yeah, it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for being available. I know just from what I've heard, you guys are you're kind of outpacing regular or, total craft trends.
Yeah.
So kind of to see what the latest was, check in with all that. But Harry wanted to say hi, and he said he's jealous that you're a really good cook or something. Is that a joke or is that true?
No, I've always loved to cook, and I've gotten into it over the last decade. And then, I don't know, maybe everyone's found something that's helped make the current situation more normal, or take something you love and get into it even more. So I've been cooking even more and trying all kinds of new stuff and ordering fancy ingredients. And so my Instagram, which doesn't have a lot of followers, but Harry's one of them, is mostly about food I'm making.
Nice. That's
so
awesome.
I'm getting into it even more. So it's been fun.
That's awesome. That's cool. I actually cook a lot with my 4-year-old son, and we've been baking 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Which is I've got my COVID-15 plus that, but anything to keep him engaged, poor thing. I mean, he's like a caged animal. So I'm that keeps you entertained, dude. Cool. But anyway, without further ado. So, okay. So you guys are up total double digits, or can you give me any color there?
Yeah. Well, we always do kind of benchmark our performance versus craft and total craft. And year to date, we're up about our regional craft brands. Now, I'm just going to talk about Offpremise because everyone knows the other side of the story. So Offpremise, year to date, we're up about 20% collective of our craft brands. Doesn't include Atwater because that's not a done deal yet still.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Which, if you look at Nielsen, that's about double the total craft growth rate over that same period of time, which in the Offpremise has sort of, as you probably know, accelerated quite a bit. Right. If you look at just the COVID-19 period, or whatever we're calling that now, total craft in Nielsen Offpremise is surging. It's actually up over 20%, but we're still maintained slightly ahead of that pace. So we feel very good about our brands in the Offpremise and how they've performed. In particular, Hop Valley and Terrapin are just crushing it. Hop Valley, which is our brand out of Eugene, Oregon, they've been slightly more focused off-premise for the last few years. And despite the closure of on-premise and despite the closure of all venues, and I'm not sure if you've ever seen one of our hot boxes, but we put, a lot of beer through venues and events with Hop Valley. Despite all that and that being all shut off, the total business for Hop Valley is up double digits in the last 8 weeks, and overall for the year up significantly, which I don't know that there's a lot of brands, especially craft brands, that are up overall without on-premise. And so their strategy of focusing on innovation and the stash stuff and large packs, which is what everyone's turning to right now, has really, really paid off. And then a similar story from Terrapin. Really solid innovation with new things like High and Hazy. Really good. They restaged their recreation ale to be a lower cal, more drinkable beer. A lot more business in their variety packs, which are larger. And so that also has helped Terrapin. So those two the total business is doing great, but those two are really standouts right now.
Are you looking? Hey, Marty.
Hi, Marty. Thanks for letting me in.
I couldn't answer your question because I was talking.
I know. I just was like, oh, Marty's at the door. Okay, let's let him in the virtual door. We're gonna hear the baby crying in the background.
Now my handler's here. I gotta stop talking.
Yeah, right. It's like looking over his shoulder. No. So that's awesome. Are you guys looking at all to expand their distribution beyond their current markets potentially, or?
Well, this current episode that we're dealing with hasn't changed our stance on expansion. So Hop Valley's in most of the states in the Pacific region, and currently no plans to expand that. And if you look at Hop Valley, this explosive growth that they're going through right now is the closer to home, the higher the growth, which is really important. Yeah. We talked about, you've probably heard, you can correct me if you haven't, but there's this movement toward trusted brands.
Sure. Yeah.
I've worked really hard in the last few weeks to get a definition of what that even means, because I think it's a fact that people are turning to trusted brands. I just didn't know what the definition of that was, because I think it can be misunderstood, because certainly trusted brands are big national brands that have been around for decades, like Miller Lite and Coors Light, and those brands are killing it.
Yep.
But trusted brands happen closer to home. Trusted brands are beers that people are familiar with. They're brands that have been of high quality for years. Even if it's just a few years, they are brands that have been focused on building their sort of brand presence in wherever they're selling. So, and they've been widely available wherever they're selling. And so Hot Valley, obviously all of our brands are really trusted brands, quote unquote, within their core markets. And so we will always continue to focus on close to home and making these brands really, really strong regionally. And then Terrapin, same thing, like its wheelhouse is in Georgia, Florida, heading into the Carolinas now, doing really well. But it's across most of the Eastern Seaboard and even into the Great Lakes a little bit. So we will always focus on winning in core markets, home markets, but we have always expanded when we thought it was the right time. And that's not going to change.
Yeah, that makes sense. To back up a sec, total Tent and Blake, I know you were saying some of the trends you were sharing were off-premise. Are your gains off-premise making up for the losses on-premise? Like, are you up, overall despite that loss, or?
And just to clarify one thing, what I've been talking about so far is regional craft excluding Leine's. We'll talk about Leine's next.
Okay. Yep.
But only, so the answer is no. Like, craft struggles because of the amount of volume most craft brands put through on premise.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, no, our great growth in off premise has not quite made up for the decline in on, and that's to be expected across the board. It has helped us. It just helped us stay focused. It helps reiterate the importance of having the right packs at the right price and the importance of innovation and keeping your brand fresh. It reiterates the need that you got to have a brand that stands out. And we've been focused on that since day one at Tent and Blake. So we want to build brands, and we talked about this too. Part of being a trusted brand is being recognized on the shelf. People are not lingering in stores for a half hour trying to find some fancy new beer. Right. So we really try to stay focused on and it's helped us really drive that focus into the off premise, but by and large, it has not made up for the loss of on. The one example that I gave already, the only brand of ours that's actually doing that is Hot Valley. Again, frankly, it's kind of remarkable when a significant portion of their business is of their customer base are no longer operating, and they're still up overall. It just shows you the strength of that business.
Right. I didn't, we kind of chat, or, I sent points that I wanted to go over, but it just occurs to me, with all of the movement into trusted brands and also larger packs in craft, are you seeing any supply tightness for like cans and that sort of thing for your guys?
I'm not sure if this is wood or if it's but, so far no, but we know what's happening. I obviously take part in lots of conversations across Molson Coors total, and obviously and this is, by the way, not a beer thing. It's anyone who sells can thing, that there's definitely such an increase in demand for cans that I even told my wife, like, hey, if we might not be able to buy the kids' favorite Dr. Pepper here in a little while. So the can thing is an issue. We're tracking it closely. We have great relationships with our suppliers, and so far, and I check a lot on the procurement side of our craft teams, and so far so good on the supply side, but we watch it very, very closely.
Cool. Well, you mentioned Leinenkugels, and I'd love to talk about that. I mean, I feel like if I remember correctly, the last few sets of data have been pretty good for it, right? And before that, we've been struggling for a bit. So, what's driving that better trend? Is it Spritzin? Like, just kind of a snapshot of what that brand's doing right now, and if you hope it can continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So Leine's we're very, very happy with the way Leine's is performing right now. And it, again, comes back to a similar story that I just outlined for you. It's really the strength of that brand in the off-premise that's carrying the weight. And it's Summer Shandy, first and foremost. That's by far the largest piece of that business. And as we like to remind people, Summer Shandy continues to be the largest seasonal craft brand all summer long. And we're heading into that territory now. And it always has been. But the good news is Summer Shandy is actually up 19% right now, latest 4 weeks in the off-premise. I believe you guys called it out as one of the fastest growing off-premise craft brands. And the good news is it's all velocity based. So velocity sales per point of distribution for Summer Shandy in the last 4 weeks is actually up 32%. So we're really excited about Summer Shandy. And the second piece that's working is at the total portfolio level for Leinenkugels. Like for a while now, we've been focusing or trying to shift the mix more into cans and more into larger craft or larger packages. And given today's environment, that one, it was important to do no matter what, but given the circumstances of the day, the timing of doing that could not have been better. And so total Leinenkugels off-premise can volume is actually up 22% for the total business the latest 4 weeks. So those two things are super important and have really helped the business. And then the last thing you mentioned at Spritzin, it's just launched in March in the middle of a pandemic. You've probably heard some good stories and great stories of brands that are getting some good traction despite launching in a very difficult time. I would put Spritzin in that camp. The distributors are still behind it, particularly closer you get to Leinie's home markets. And it's exceeded our expectations so far from a shipments perspective. And then for all of Leinie's, the great news is, like, this has been done so far without a lot of media. We're about to flip the switch back on in media as we head into the summer. And so Spritzin and Summer Shandy will be the focus of our media plan. One thing that we all look forward to right now, and perhaps yourself as well, is the return of baseball. It sort of has happened over the years that summer and baseball and Leinenkugel Summer Shandy are like the perfect combination. So we really want baseball back.
Yeah.
There's news that it is coming back. And when that happens, we'll flip back on our local buys in all of our partner markets where we have baseball agreements. And so we will utilize that for both Spritzin and Shandy. So we hope to build off the momentum it has now and accelerate once we flip on the media. And then the last piece, and I don't know if you picked this up or maybe it's not as interesting to some of the country, but we are so happy to have signed an endorsement deal with Leinenkugels and Christian Yelich, who is 2 years ago the MVP of the National League. Last year, an amazing season until he got hurt. And then just if you follow him on social media or just know him as a person, he's just one of the most likable guys. And he fits with what we're trying to do on Leinie's perfectly. So he's already done a happy hour with Dick Leinenkugel on Instagram Live, which was great. And then it sort of a little pandemic interrupted a little bit of our plans with Christian, but he's on board. He loves our brand, loves our beers, and we're going to be developing content with him to use now and for the next few years. So we're excited about that.
And that's mostly for digital, or will those be the local TV buys will include him? Or
right now it'll be mostly digital, or actually you can imagine when baseball kicks back, we'll even do stuff hyper local in the Wisconsin area because he's a bit of a living legend here now. And so yeah, a lot of digital stuff, a lot of social media, a lot of him because he is a fan of beer and loves the Leinie's brands. A lot of him talking about our brands, and then more locally, he'll even do some appearances and stuff like that. So,
yeah. And I'm always curious about, which brands get the TV spots. Anything you can share about like big media plans for any other brands and what those TV spots could look like? I mean, will they have more of a return to normal feel, or because I know we're all kind of tiptoeing around still, except for certain brands that are just like, I think people are over it,
Okay, so this doesn't necessarily apply to Tenth Lake. Leinie's would have our biggest media plan, and this year we're really focused on digital and social and kind of trying to get our message out that way. But I do know, and the marketing director for Leinie's and I just had a call an hour ago, and from a company perspective, there's been a lot of talk about what the mood should be on advertising right now. And I'm going to go on my personal opinion here, and this is where Marty starts sweating, but
yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
he's sending me a note. No, but I personally think that, the old we're here for you messaging is tired and people are a little bit ready to move on. But at the same time, you can't ignore what's happening around us. And so smart advertising is those ads that can thread the needle.
Yeah.
So you don't want to show chaos and craziness and let's go for it. And you don't want to necessarily keep harping on how sad everyone is.
Yeah.
And we want to thread that needle. Be positive. This is our brands are strong. We have great messaging and we can bring all of our brands to life across our portfolio in the appropriate manner.
Right. Cool.
Sorry. That wasn't too bad, was it?
delete, edit, backspace.
I'm not even listening anymore.
Yeah, he's sending you messages through his brain. Everything else is.
Can you hear me, Marty?
I can.
How about
I can.
It
some of
wasn't
the
too bad, was it?
It was balanced.
It was fair. We're hard hitting here. You know, I know we don't have time, I don't think, to talk about every big bet new release from 10th and Blake in the next few months, but I'd love to, you know, if you want to pick your top 3 or so that you're excited about, that new brands that are coming out from all the different brewers, you know.
Yeah, for sure. You know what it's like when someone asks you like about
Pick your baby, your favorite baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might try to hit all of them just so that none of them get mad.
Yeah.
I talked about Hop Valley, and they're just killing it. They have a whole line, as you might know, of cryo hop beers, which they call their stash line, which is just killing it. And so they have a new one that's in the hazy camp called Stash Panda, kind of a play on words of Trash Panda, but it's super fun, great tasting beer. And then I don't know if you noticed, but as an April Fool's joke, they took the stash idea a step further and came out with Stash Exotic.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And they just posted it on social, like as in, look what's coming. And we can send you a picture. It's incredibly well done. And it was during the height of the Tiger King craze. Yeah. And the response was so crazy that we ran it through legal super quick. And it's being packaged and filled into actual cans as we speak. It's a bleach blonde lager.
See, why can't you make that national?
So trust me, we've been asked, but it's in limited release right now. Maybe there's a can shortage. I don't know. So they're doing it. The response has been crazy, but it shows how fast we can move, and we're really excited about that. So Stash Exotic, more to come. Out of St. Archer, look, they have a couple of brands that have launched recently. So their Hazy IPA and their Tropical IPA are just fantastic. And they're sort of honing in on those two to lead the charge right now, including a 12-pack variety pack that we're excited about. Terrapin has High and Hazy entering the Hazy IPA space. They've redone their Recreation Ale. Some of the more recent releases, like Luau Crunkles, has become sometimes we'll discover fantastic beers in our variety packs that then become standalone. So Luau Crunkles would be one of those. Really important piece of the business there. And then for Revolver, we're really excited about the upcoming launch of Blood and Honey Blonde, which is it's citrus blonde, Blood and Honey citrus blonde. It's acknowledging the fact that Revolver, Blood and Honey kind of go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. That's been such a strong performer for them. How do you leverage that idea and extend off of it and create something similar, but it's lower ABV, way more sessionable than Blood and Honey regular is, and it's lower in calories. It's not a sub 100 calorie beer, but it's a fantastic beer that fits with the Texas idea and the Blood and Honey platform very well. We're excited about that. Actually, that one has me maybe the most excited.
Yeah, because I had heard about that one and I thought, that's interesting. Is that, and I know you said it is a little lower calorie than Blood and Honey. I don't know, how caloric Blood and Honey is, but I do know that it's a delicious beer that I don't drink as much as I would like to because I assume it's higher cal. Are you calling out the calorie count? Is that sort of a better for you play on this new one, or not necessarily?
It's not as explicit better for you play, but it will be more talked about as a more sessionable, easy drinking beer for the Texas heat kind of.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got my Gmail chats blowing
It's
up.
all right. I can get you the specs if you on the beer. I don't know the cal can off the top of my head.
Cool. Let's see what else. I mean, most of what I had to ask.
The other brand I don't want to leave out, sorry, is our AC Golden business in Colorado.
Okay.
More story. They just came out with a day pack. It's a variety pack, and it's all, again, the premise of Colorado Native is 100% Colorado ingredients, and that sort of boxes you into certain amounts of beers you can make. But they've come out with a day pack, which is all. It's not a better for you explicit play, but more sessionable, easy drinking lagers and beers. And they put a Hellas beer in there, which is amazing. And again, we might discover that Hellas becomes a standalone beer out of that variety pack that we just launched.
And that's just in Colorado, right? Or
it's Colorado, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And the people in Colorado love that fact.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? That's the whole Colorado native, right? Yeah. Are you guys starting to think about, when and how, I mean, I'm syou are. How are you starting to think about reopening the on-premise? And then, anything you can share about how keg return logistics have gone? Do you have any beat as to how big that's going to be, how far along you are in that process? Because I've talked to people who are like, oh, we're barely scratching the surface,
Yeah, and I might not be the best person to get too in depth on that. And in fact, if you do want to talk to someone more broadly about how that's going and do it with Beer Business Daily or whatever, like our guy Jeff Agassi is running that, and he would have really good answers. I will say on the keg return program, we as 10th and Blake were arm in arm with Molson Coors overall, and so we're part of the exact same program that Molson Coors initiated, which, by the way, we were the first supplier to come out and say anything. So I think we set a really good precedent of outreach to our distributors and retailers. So how that's going specifically, we'd have to follow up. When it comes to the on-premise comeback, another place where we've been, 10th and Blake has been arm in arm with our Molson Coors overall team. And we've developed a really fantastic on-premise playbook that includes insights. It includes, what we think the new world might look like in the on-premise. And we've partnered with all of our distributors, and it sort of ends with an assortment story about one of the advantages of Molson Coors is we can help the on-premise come back, and we kind of have all the brands, like of all the needs of all the consumers' needs that need to be met, our portfolio can answer. So from American light lagers to the fantastic Blue Moon, which is on fire, including Light Sky's doing really well, all the way down to imports and then to our craft. We have a portfolio that can really help, one, keep things simple, but two, pretty much deliver a beer for every occasion. So our craft partners and the regional teams are working closely on the on-premise comeback based on this framework that's been put out.
Gotcha.
We've
Cool.
been working on that since, when on-premise shut down, I think was the day we started working on the on-premise comeback plan. So it's really, we know it's important. We know it's, we are sensitive to the plight of our retailers. I mean, it's a huge challenge. And so we need to be aware of the new reality and what they can expect, and be sensitive to be empathetic basically to the challenges they face, and be a partner as we come out of it.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be a long road back, regardless of what people are allowed to do, right? What they will do is sort of a different story. So hopefully hoping for the best for everyone. So just one final question, I have to ask, we were just talking about Atwater. You guys just added them a few months ago, right? And so that's not a totally done deal yet? That's not closed, or?
We're still waiting for regulatory approval in Michigan.
Gotcha.
It's just been delayed with everything going on.
Gotcha. Are you guys, not to be insensitive, but obviously there are going to be a lot of distressed craft brewers right now, right? Are you potentially thinking of looking at any of them to add to the portfolio, or?
I anticipated this question, and I anticipate your disappointment in my answer.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really speculate about what the future holds. I mean, but to be perfectly honest, we're so, one thing that this current environment has made us do is to really, really focus on the here and now right now and help everyone get through this. And that's what we're doing. And so what comes next, I can't even speculate.
Right. Yeah. And like, I think it was Mike Stevens. I asked him the same question, of course, last week. He's like, we don't even know what it's going to look like. AKA, like, we don't even know if we're going to want anymore. Like,
it's, there's way more questions than answers. And all we hope to be is a really important part of the recovery. I mean, I'm not saying that as a selfish reason to grow our brands. It's just, I think the beer community rallies when there's challenges like this, and we only want to be seen as a partner, not only from our distributors and retailers, but for the business as a whole. How do we as a business in beer, whether it's a small craft down the road or a mega brewer, how do we work together to help each other come out of this? And that's really what we want to get done.
Cool. Awesome. Well, cheers. That's a good note to end things on. I'll let you get back to your molecular gastronomy.
Tonight is a spicy peanut sesame noodle dish with ground pork. So
Oh, that sounds
follow
awesome.
me on Instagram, right?
Yeah, I will. We'll trade notes.
All right.
Jen, if you have
Marty?
any follow-ups, just let me know. Also, I just feel like required to mention because they've been so active, but each of the partners has, Paul talked about getting through this. Worth mentioning, they've all been really involved in community stuff, from producing hand sanitizer to providing like packing materials to various organizations. So just a lot going on there, and I can send you a bullet on that if you want. So
Cool.
Yeah, that's, Marty, good catch. So having a strong brand, remaining a reliable partner to distributors and retailers, continuing to innovate and be seen as fresh and interesting, and then staying engaged with their communities. Like, those are all principles that we live every day, but those are the things that are also going to help our businesses come out of this strongly. And so they've gone way above and beyond in their local areas to help not only within the beer business, but beyond. And so, as Marty said, we have lots of details on that, so we can share.
Cool. Yeah, always happy to try and pass along some good news right now,
Yeah.
Good stuff.